Hello everyone and welcome to the end of chapter homework video for exercise 14.6. In this video we're going to have another look at the rectangle class. So we're going to do a new implementation of the rectangle class, and in this case it's going to extend from a class called geometric object, which is an abstract base class. And then we're also going to extend that with methods that are useful to rectangles. Along the way, we're actually going to implement Comparable. Comparable is an interface that allows us to have a common way of doing comparisons between objects, and in this case it's going to be two rectangle objects. And this can be used in all sorts of things, in if statements, for sorting, all that kind of thing. So with that, let's get started. Over in Eclipse, I've created a new project, and to this we're going to add a new class. And the class we're going to add is going to be geometric object. Now this class I don't actually need to write. I can just copy and paste this in, and I'm pretty sure you guys have access to this class as well, so there won't be any problem with you having this with me having this class and you not having it. But I'll quickly go over it. So geometric object is an abstract base class for geometric shapes, and it has things like a color, whether it's filled, and a date of when it's created. So it's got a constructor there which takes a color and whether it's filled. We've got getters and setters for the color and the filled. We know how to get when we have a getter for when it was created, a toString method, and then two abstract methods. So one is getArea and one is getPerimeter. The reason these are abstract is because the implementation will depend on what actual shape we're doing. So when we create a rectangle class, we need to make sure we implement these, or else we'll get errors when we try to compile. So now that I've gone over that, we can add another class, and this one is actually going to be called exercise 14_6, which is our standard naming convention we've been using for these homework videos. Alright, now that we've got all that out of the way, let's get started on writing some actual code. Outside of the exercise 14_6 class, we're going to write our own class. So class rectangle1 extends geometric object and implements comparable. Okay, and we don't need this. And we're ready to go. Now you notice straight away that we've got some compiler errors. The reason for these is because we haven't implemented the abstract methods. So that's what the problem is. Now, a rectangle, what do we need to know? Well, really all we need is the width and the height. So private double width, private double height. Next up, we're going to have a default constructor. So public rectangle 1, no parameters. And what we're going to do is set this to a unit square. So the size will be 1 and 1. The way we're going to do this is by calling the other constructor, which we're about to write, with 2 parameters, with the width and the height. So to get rid of this compiler error, we should do this. Public rectangle 1, double width, double height. And all we're going to do in here is set this dot width to width and this dot height to height. And there's our constructors done. Next up, we're going to have getters and setters for the width and height. And I'm going to get Eclipse to generate these for me because I'm lazy. So where is this? Generate getters and setters. We want both a setter and a getter for width and height. So that'll be just fine. And there they are. So get width, get height, set height. That's all fine. And so all that we're left with really is the perimeters and the areas and the compare_to, which are the more interesting methods, I think, anyway. So why don't we start with getArea? So public double getArea. And how do we calculate the area of a rectangle? Well, it's just width multiplied by height. So return width by height. And we're good to go. Next up, perimeter. So public double get perimeter. And how do we do this? Well, it's just return 2 multiplied by width plus height. And that's that done. So far, pretty easy. Next up is the Compareto method, and really, we have to decide how we're going to do the comparison. We could do it with perimeter, but I think it makes more sense to do it with area. So what we're going to do is look at the 2 rectangles area to do the comparison. So public int compare to object obj. Alright, so what's next? Well, if this dot get area is greater than... Now, we have to do a typecast here. Note that this parameter is an object. We want a rectangle 1. So... actually, just before we go any further, I've just realized that really... no, actually, never mind, let's just continue. Sorry, I'm getting a bit lost. So there's the end of the typecast. So we're typecasting obj dot get area. Now, what's this line up to? Okay, so if this area is greater than obj area after we've done the typecast, then we're going to return 1. Otherwise, well, actually, why don't I just copy this line of code? If the current area is, if this area is less than obj's area, then we're going to return -1. Otherwise, we'll return 0. And there's our comparator. Compare-to method. Nothing too bad at the moment. The next thing is whether it's equals. So, public boolean equals object obj. And what we're going to have in here is actually, I'm just going to copy this because it's a little bit less writing. So we're going to return this area equal. So I don't need these parentheses. But if this area is equal to obj's area after we've done a typecast, then we're going to return true. Otherwise, we return false. So that's fine so far. And really, that's our rectangle class done. So at this point, why don't we do some testing in our main method up here? So public static void main string array args. Alright, so rectangle 1 obj1 equals new rectangle 1. We'll use the default constructor, and we'll create another one straight away called obj2. Next, what we're going to do is test out our equals and compare to methods. So system.out.println obj1.equals obj2. And inside the next line, we'll actually try the compare to method. Oops. Like that. And why don't we run this now and see what happens? So run as the Java application, and true and 0. Now, if we were to use a different constructor here, so 12 and 55, say, what this will do when we run it is false and -1. Which is fantastic. That means our compare to method and our equals method are working just fine. And we get all the extra functionality that was already defined for us in geometric object. So really, that's it for this video. So just to summarize now, we implemented the comparable interface. Now, compare to method is used for comparing two rectangles. We've implemented our own version of that handles rectangles specifically. If we didn't, it would use object's default one, which isn't particularly useful. And then we extended from geometric object so that we could use the already implemented functionality and then implement the abstract methods defined in the superclass that we needed to do. So with that, that's it for this video. Thanks a lot.